Sometimes, the most urgent conversations are the ones we fear having the most. The world is constantly changing, but how we feel about it often stays the same. What's happening around us can shake us, but it's how we respond that defines us. In times of crisis, our emotions become the lens through which we see everything. The truth can be uncomfortable, but we must face it if we are to grow. Urgent matters often require us to make choices that challenge our very core. We live in a world where everything changes in an instant, but our hearts remain the same. When the world is in turmoil, the strength to endure begins with how we understand our feelings. Sometimes we must address the issues we avoid, even if they stir up fear and discomfort. The urgency of today demands we reflect deeply on our inner truths. We can't change the world if we don't first change how we see it. Current events aren't just headlines, they're the raw emotions we all feel inside. Urgent issues force us to confront the most vulnerable parts of ourselves. It's easy to ignore the truth, but we all know that it always comes to light. The most urgent matters aren't always those that are the loudest. They're often the ones we ignore. Current affairs don't just impact the world, they impact our hearts too. We're living in a time where urgent conversations are often avoided, but silence is no longer an option. The urgency of today requires we listen, not just to the world, but to ourselves. In times of crisis, the greatest battle is often the one inside us. When everything feels uncertain, the only thing we can trust is how we feel in this moment. The current state of the world calls for deep reflection, not just action. There's an urgency to understanding how we feel about what's happening around us. Our emotions are as real as the events unfolding around us. They can't be ignored. In every moment of uncertainty, we must be willing to question what we know and feel. To change the course of history, we must first address the emotions it stirs within us. We are the generation that must decide how we want to react to a rapidly changing world. Sometimes, urgent matters require us to step outside our comfort zones and face uncomfortable truths. Current affairs have a way of bringing to the surface feelings we didn't even know we had. The urgent times we live in demand we be fully aware of how we feel, not just what we know. We cannot ignore our feelings when the world is asking for our attention. There's power in urgent conversations, especially when they touch the heart of what we're feeling. What's happening in the world today is not just happening to others. It's touching all of us in deep ways. The urgency of now isn't just about immediate action, but about understanding how we emotionally navigate change. Feelings are the foundation of our actions. If we ignore them, we risk missing the deeper truth. Every current event is a reflection of how we, as individuals, feel about the world we're living in. To address the urgent, we must first explore the emotions it evokes within us. The urgency to act is often matched by the urgency to understand how we feel in the moment. We live in a world that is constantly evolving. Our emotions must evolve with it. We must talk about the urgent matters of today, not just with our minds, but with our hearts. Emotions are as real as the world around us. They cannot be separated from what is happening in society. What's urgent today isn't just the news, it's how we are internalizing it and responding to it. In these times of uncertainty, our feelings are more urgent than ever. The urgency to act begins with understanding the emotions that drive us. As the world shifts, so too must our ability to empathize with what is unfolding. Every crisis is an invitation to check in with ourselves and ask how we feel about the world. Urgent times require us to move from reaction to reflection. What's happening around us isn't just a headline, it's a reflection of the feelings shared by millions. We can no longer afford to ignore the emotional weight of the current moment. Urgency doesn't always mean speed. It can also mean being present with our feelings. The world demands urgency, but the heart demands understanding. We can no longer ignore our emotional response to the world's current events. It's the key to finding our way forward. To navigate the urgency of now, we must tune into the emotions that are guiding us. The world is changing, and our hearts must change with it. We feel everything happening around us. There's no escaping the emotions that come with it. Every urgent moment holds an opportunity for emotional growth and understanding. The urgency of today is not just about solving problems, it's about understanding our feelings in the process. Our feelings are valid, no matter how urgent or chaotic the world around us may seem. We must talk about the urgent things that stir us, for it's these things that shape the future. Urgent conversations require vulnerability, honesty, and a willingness to confront the truth. In the face of urgent matters, we must be brave enough to address both the world's challenges and the emotions they bring up. When the world feels heavy, acknowledging our feelings is the first step toward clarity. Urgent moments often reveal truths we've been too afraid to face. The weight of the world can be overwhelming, but it's through our emotions that we find strength. Every crisis is an opportunity to connect with what truly matters in our hearts. The urgency of today asks us not only to act, but to feel deeply. When emotions run high, it's a sign that something important is demanding our attention. The world's chaos often mirrors the unresolved emotions within us. Every urgent issue carries an emotional undertone that must not be ignored. In times of upheaval, our feelings are the compass that guides us toward what's right. Urgent situations demand not just action, but emotional resilience. The conversations we avoid are often the ones that can heal us the most. The urgency of the present moment is asking us to balance reason with emotion. Every headline is a reflection of collective emotions waiting to be understood. The world is loud, but it's our inner voice that tells us what matters most. Urgency is often a call to pause, reflect, and understand before we act. When the world feels like it's spinning out of control, grounding ourselves in our emotions can restore balance. The current moment demands empathy, not just for others, but for ourselves. Urgent issues are often emotional lessons in disguise. The faster the world moves, the more important it is to slow down and feel. We cannot solve the world's problems without first addressing the emotions they evoke in us. In the urgency of now, our feelings are the most honest part of the conversation. Sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is sit with the discomfort of the urgent. Every emotion we feel during times of crisis is valid and necessary. The urgency of the moment is calling us to reflect on who we are becoming. When the world screams for attention, our emotions whisper what truly matters. Addressing the urgent starts with acknowledging what we feel deep within. We cannot ignore our feelings and expect to navigate the world's challenges effectively. Every urgent moment is an invitation to connect with our deepest selves. In times of uncertainty, emotions become the language of truth. Urgency doesn't mean rushing. It means paying attention to what matters most. When feelings rise to the surface, it's a sign that something significant is unfolding. Urgent matters remind us of the power of being fully present with our emotions. Our feelings are as much a part of the solution as our actions are. When urgency calls, it's often our emotions that hold the answers. We can't change the world until we first understand how the world is changing us. The emotions we feel in urgent times are the seeds of transformation. Urgent moments are a test of our ability to feel deeply and respond wisely. When the world moves too fast, our emotions become the anchor that keeps us steady. Every urgent decision begins with understanding the emotions driving it. The most urgent truths are the ones we carry in our hearts. Urgent conversations aren't easy, but they're necessary for growth. The urgency of today asks us to embrace vulnerability and authenticity. When urgency meets emotion, transformation is inevitable. The most pressing matters often reveal our deepest emotional truths. In the rush to act, we must remember to feel. Urgent times require us to turn inward and ask what we truly value. Our feelings are the bridge between the chaos of the world and the clarity we seek. The urgency of today is shaping the emotional landscape of tomorrow. In times of urgency, our emotions remind us of our shared humanity. When the world seems divided, it's our emotions that can bring us back together. Urgent situations demand emotional courage as much as physical action. Our feelings are the silent drivers of every urgent decision we make.